the way I try and look at making decisions is like, what's the easiest thing I can do that's going to have the biggest ROI?
Yeah. I'm always just trying to find like, what are people doing that's unique or different, even if they're in a totally different industry. And then the life that you're living today could also be from the decisions you made 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago.
So today's been an absolute blast. For anyone who's looking to scale an online business, we've got Scaling Sensei himself, Ravi Abuvala. So Ravi runs a business scaling with systems, also has a new business scaling school, which I'm sure is something we come into. He's a master in terms of helping people scale across multiple different businesses, and I've just been to your mastermind event in Paris, where we currently are, and second one I've been to first one was in Tenerife. So big thank you for your time today.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me out here. I forgot you were in Tenerife. Yeah, so we did it's like a real Europe kind of Spain, France masterminds that we've been doing lately. That's awesome.
100%. Your background in terms of how you've grown your businesses and scaling with systems, I would say at the beginning is pretty quick. And you even mentioned before this, you're a master nerd in terms of systems. Would you say this is something that came to you as a child, or was something that you grew into, if that made sense?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think that it came to me as a child. I wasn't like an entrepreneur as a child, like selling, couches or baseball cards or whatever else it was. I was always going to be a lawyer, and so I don't think that's very systems either. I think that really what introduced me to like the systems world was the 4-hour work week. That was the first time I ever got introduced. Like, okay, if I could set something up and then build a system around it, I could literally never have to do it again, right? And then I would build a system around cold email, and then I would hire a VA and they would do the cold email, and then I would never have to do cold email again. Then the same thing around client fulfillments, like running ads for our clients. I had an advertising agency, did a SOP on Loom, how to do it, gave it to a VA, never had to do it again. And it was just, like, to me, it's so obvious. I'm like, well, why wouldn't you just systemize? I mean, I have systemized my personal life, my going out with friends, like my relationship with my girlfriend systemized. So to me, it's really almost a way of life, but I don't think I started doing it until I started my first business.
Okay. One thing you said there was interesting, which is something I personally struggle with a bit. Systemize your relationship with girlfriend. How does that work?
Yeah, it's probably one of the things I talk about the most, ironically, even though it's not something that we sell or teach or anything. But I just, going back to kind of systems, right? So I have this belief that human beings typically rely on their own decision-making ability to figure out what's right or wrong for them. But the problem is that your decision-making ability fatigues over time, or throughout a day or whatever else it is. And so if at the end of the day your girlfriend says like, hey, you want to get dinner or something like that, and you've just had a banger of a work day, it's pretty easy for you to just, or you want to keep on working, it's pretty easy for you just to say, no, I'm too tired, I don't want to go out, I just want to keep on working, et cetera, et cetera. And so if I knew that at least 1 to 2 nights a week with my girlfriend would lead to a healthier relationship than if we didn't do it, well, then I would need to build a system around doing it. So, we've systemized a bunch of stuff, but I think dinners is a great example, because everybody can do it. Every Friday, we do a date night dinner with my girlfriend, and what happens is my executive assistant has an Asana task, and she goes, we live in Miami, so there's dozens of amazing restaurants. She knows what we like, 4.8 stars, this great ambiance, and so she will find a restaurant availability we haven't been to. It's on my calendar, it's on my girlfriend's calendar, she invites us both, and then she makes a reservation there. We'll do date night. Then we also have an activity tracker. So once a month, my executive assistant gets all of the activities that are going on in the southeast of the United States, because I have my plane that I can fly as well. So it's anywhere within an hour plane ride or within a 30-minute car ride. And so we will, she'll say, okay, on the first of every month, she says, okay, great, these are the different activities. There's a Drake concert in Tampa. There's the Philharmonic in Miami. There's, the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show in Fort Lauderdale. And so we'll say, okay, let's do this, 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 this. We'll plan dinner beforehand. And so the way that I like to look at it is, it's like I just like to live my life. I don't like to manage my life. And so doing these things, we're able to do some really amazing stuff that I think that somebody typically wouldn't be able to do, because I won't speak for everybody, but for me previously, it was just so much easier to just be like, I don't have time for that, let alone planning it, not including going to it, but planning it, et cetera, et cetera. And so now it's systemized, it's in our schedule, somebody else really manages it, and we just show up and enjoy it.
Makes a lot of sense. A really interesting thing I was thinking about actually on the taxi on the way here is that, in my opinion, online marketing is changing in an interesting way. I'd be interested to see what your perspective is in terms of generally Facebook ad costs, for example, are going up year on year on year, but also in some respects, organic reach is going down.
Yeah.
How do you think that's going to affect people for like content creators and people selling courses, online coaching over the coming years?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Like, it's easy to say that organic reach is going down. I think that like competition is going up, right? So you just have more creators coming on the platforms every single day, and like copycat creators, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the landscape's definitely changing, but I just feel like before it was very easy. You could make a post and it goes viral and it could be like of anything. And now just like anything else, you just have to put a little bit more work into it. One of the things I will say that I just try as much as possible, we talked about it yesterday at the mastermind, but it's the unique mechanism. Like it's so much so that every single thing we do now, I'm pretty much like, how can we be different than everybody else? That's all you need to do, right? I even had a message the other day. I did this master class for this online community, and I got a DM afterwards, and he was like, dude, this was the best master class I've ever been to. I've seen the thumbnails from your YouTube videos, but I've never clicked on them because they just look like everybody else's. I didn't know your content was so good. And that just hit me like a ton of bricks, and I like had an emergency meeting with my media team, and I'm like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, if we look like everybody else, then our organic reach is going to be lower, right? And it's easy because you see somebody else doing well, so then you say, let me model after them. I mean, that's how a lot of us have seen success, including myself, is modeling after other people ahead of us. But ironically enough, in a lot of ways, like in your business offer, in your content itself, it's like, how can you be unique? And there's a great example of this. I can't remember this guy's name, but he's like a rapper on TikTok, and he does these like TikTok shorts, and those things go viral, like 17 million, 18 million views. And these shorts are like, he creates, it's almost like a skit. It's him, and you know how they do the ads where it's like, it would be him sitting here and then clips to him sitting there, then him sitting there. And he does, because he used to be in theater. So he does this like almost rap, music video, comedy thing. And the raps are pretty fire too. And I listened to this video of him on My First Million with Sampar. And they're doing like $280K a month in income from Spotify, from like this download streams where they get a penny or something like that. And his main marketing channel is just TikTok. And so it's just, there's how many people trying to do music on TikTok, but he's doing this unique thing where he's combining like these fire raps that's kind of freestyle, and then he's doing these like little plays that go along with it as well. So I just always, you had asked me earlier, like what are the videos you watch on YouTube? I'm always just trying to find like, what are people doing that's unique or different, even if they're in a totally different industry, and how do I apply it to what I'm doing so that I can, still either keep the same amount of reach or grow the reach that we're doing right now.
I agree completely with that. As I actually said, I think to you yesterday, I think things go in cycles. So like everyone loves reels and videos, but I would guarantee probably the next 2 to 4 years it comes back to carousel images on Instagram, because people want the thing that there isn't in front of them all the time.
Exactly.
It's like human nature. You don't want what's there. You mentioned one thing then that was very interesting, is in terms of modeling people. Who did you model in terms of building subscribers? Who did you model in terms of scaling with systems? And who are you looking to model with what you want to do next in terms of, you mentioned you want to do like a SaaS play longer term? Yeah,
so for scaling systems, I don't think I necessarily modeled someone for that. Now the concept of, so when I first got in the online world, I was like a waiter in Italian restaurants, and I bought Ty Lopez's social media marketing agency. And so I modeled after the guy that was teaching that course, which his name escapes my mind right now. Then after I had like started scaling the advertising agency, I was kind of introduced to Sam Ovens and Consulting Accelerator, and it was like, hey, you're doing done-for-you services. Here's how you scale it with more of like a group coaching model. And his was more like group coaching compared to what we do inside Scaling Systems. But that being said, I wasn't necessarily modeling after him, but I definitely learned a lot about like high ticket coaching. And then people were asking me, hey, Ravi, like, how did you scale your agency to how you did? We both bought this course at the same time, and here you are like traveling, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's how Scaling with Systems was launched. And then right now, when I see the SaaS play, it's just, there's a few people I've noticed that have done almost the exact same transition. Some kind of done-for-you services, some kind of coaching info, blend, hybrid offer, and then into the SaaS world. Because like we had talked about it a lot in depth yesterday, but I think very smart people are continuously finding better vehicles for leverage. And I think there's a right order of operations. Like no way I could have gone from a Italian waiter to a SaaS company right away, right? I had to get skill sets. I got to learn what the problem is. But Sam Ovens is a great example, right? He did Consulting Accelerator, then he did school. Alex Becker is a great example. He did Iron, which was YouTube ads, and then he launched Hyros. There's a few other guys that are in the space, but so it's not necessarily that it's like I'm learning from them. I'm just kind of seeing what they're doing, and then I see the growth that they have. And then I also, another thing I like to do, I said it earlier, but I like to just see what people are doing in other industries and model it in our industry. So like, there's no doubt that SaaS is a huge play, and there's huge valuations that go, and that's how you, in my opinion, get like the multiple 9-figure exit. But there's a lot of problems with SaaS. For example, one of the biggest problems with SaaS is client acquisition. So how do you profitably acquire new members? It's very rare you hear of a profitable SaaS that didn't raise venture-backed funds that's profitably acquiring new subscribers every day. And I would say one of the skills that I have is in marketing and in ads, low ticket funnels, all that stuff. And so if I could take my combination of what I know about ads and getting people to buy stuff for $47, $97, and I take that skill set and I combine it with a vehicle like SaaS where you could get a 10x multiple, a 30x multiple, et cetera, then I'm like blending these two different industries together and modeling after people that do well in SaaS and then modeling after people that do well in like low ticket info products.
It's interesting because you only think like that when you get exposed to different things.
Exactly.
Right? How is it you focus on continuing to learn like new skills and get exposed to new things now?
Yeah, it's a good question. We were saying it a little bit earlier, but I think YouTube is a great way. Like I love, because both of us being content creators on YouTube as well, it's like I go on the platform just to also see what other people are doing, right? So just to study, it's like a part of my job as a content creator inside of our company. I'd say that's the vast majority. And the other thing would be conversations like this, masterminds I'm hosting or masterminds I go to, or I'm speaking at, something like that, where just somebody brings up something that I didn't even think of, right? And they're this totally different industry. But I had this YouTube video about, I think it's called How Collaboration Can Double Your Business. But even in the past, I'd say the past like 12 to 18 months, it became very easy for me to like become very narrow-minded and focused on just scaling my business and be like, oh, if I don't need to go to a mastermind, I don't need to go to Paris, I don't need to go speak at this event because that's just a distraction. I could just sit at home and shoot a YouTube video and make the same amount of money. But one of the things I wasn't calculating in there is, like what we just said a second ago, the exposure of speaking to different people from different backgrounds with different businesses. And it was just doing that, going to different events, watching YouTube videos, maybe reading books. Naval Ravikant, The Almanac, we were talking about that last night. That also opened my mind up as well. And then when I'm speaking to these people, I just said it a second ago, but I was like, oh, wow, your biggest problem is client acquisition. I kind of am really great at that. And like, how can I figure out how do I mend these two things together?
What you said there, I think, is very valuable, and a lot of people should take context to that, because I think one of the biggest things I see people holds people back is they're not willing to put themselves out to like fly to Paris for like one day for a mastermind, like I basically done already. Yeah. I don't know, when I saw you in Miami a few weeks ago, like I flew to Miami for like a 2-day event. So it's like you put yourself in the situations to become lucky because you get around the right people, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And and it's a credit to you. I was thinking that same thing as well. Like, not only did you do the mastermind thing or in Miami, but then you came to Paris to do a one day thing as well. And I'm like, yeah, it's so weird because it's so hard to conceptualize, and you can't go there being like, okay, I'm going to go there and then I'm going to meet this person. They're going to say this one thing and it's going to change the trajectory of my life, right? It's just like, but you said it really well. You just put yourself in situations. And in that video I was talking about, I was like, okay, Ryan Pineda, he called me. He's a pretty big entrepreneur in the e-learning space for people who don't know. He called me, asked me some help for his marketing material, and I gave him some help, and he's like, hey, you should hop on the podcast. I'm in Vegas. I was like, okay, I guess let me go to Vegas. And then I got on that podcast. While I was there, I got on 4 additional podcasts. Then I got invited to go speak at an event in California, which was the next day. And like then I got an opportunity to speak invited to speak at Ryan's event in July from there. And it's like this one decision to go put yourself, quote unquote, in an area of luck where luck could happen, then just like expanded everything else. And then the launch that I'm doing for Scaling School, that like membership community that we're launching, I didn't really know if I was going to go all in on that yet. But then on this trip, I would be sitting in these podcasts and I would like start talking about it. And then everybody else I was talking to about was so interested in it. They were like foaming at the mouth. I mean, Ryan launched his membership site as soon as the podcast was over. And then we had dinner later with his like head of marketing and head of ops. And so it also validated what I had thought of as well. And so, yeah, I think people sleep on the kind of that collaboration aspect of things. I think it could be absolutely massive for unlocking the next level.
I also think a lot of people, there's a lot of untangible ROIs on things that you like. I go to your event yesterday, right? I didn't make like $10,000 extra today yet.
Sure.
But like one thing that I picked up is going to compound over the next 6, 12 months, could make you hundreds of thousands.
Agreed.
I think that's where people need to change their perspective and also elongate the time frame. One of the things you said yesterday was that with scaling with systems, you had, I think, a month or two where it was pretty shit and you actually lost money at some periods. What happened in those months that caused that? That's things people listening to this can try and avoid.
Yeah. So one of our values is radical transparency as a company, and that comes from me trying to practice radical transparency as a person. It's easy to look at Instagram and YouTube and podcasts and think that everybody's business is always up and to the right, but it's just absolutely not true. I mean, I had said it yesterday, but I can't tell you how many businesses I've even seen in our highest level mastermind doing $500,000, $600,000 a month, and then within 60 days, they're completely under. Their business is shut down. And so in a lot of ways, business is a game of attrition, and so meaning you just have to be around longer than the guy next to you, essentially. And that's changed my perspective on a lot of things. And it's also a little bit more difficult, too, because at least for me as an entrepreneur, I sometimes put my own personal net worth combined to how well my business is doing. So like if my business does bad, then I feel like I'm just a terrible person as well. So it's a little bit like, it was definitely a few tough months I've had. We've definitely had months where I've had to, 2 months so far in the history of business where we've not been profitable. I've had to pull out money from my own bank accounts in order to pay for it. But obviously the business also made me tens of millions of dollars. So extrapolated over the few years, it's like, okay, that's not that big of a deal. What are the things that I did? So one of them was when I started making this adjustment to launch Scaling School. They call it swallowing the fish in like SaaS, but it's essentially where you go from you're charging this high ticket upfront prices, and then people kind of drop off afterwards. There's no recurring, to charging very low ticket, maybe MRR, and then eventually they keep on paying, and you get this, and that it looks like a fish for those that aren't listening on the podcast. It essentially looks like a fish, and so during that kind of weird phase, you're making less cash than you were before, but you still have all of the payroll expenses, clients that you were doing even just a month before that. And then you're waiting for this MRR from the subscription to kind of catch up again. But to the people that are listening to this, it goes back to what we had talked about a little bit earlier about the vehicle thing. And so I'm just fortunate enough to be in a position now where I don't necessarily have to be playing the cash game every single month anymore. And I can start looking like, okay, what does 1 year in the future look like? What does 3 years in the future look like? What does 5? And that's really a lot of these SaaS plays. It's like they're not profitable the first year or 2 years, and they're waiting for like 3 years or 5 years to make the exit. So the first thing I would say is that get yourself in a position where you can have at least enough cash in the bank to where your personal expenses are taken care of, right? Could be whatever, $1 million in the bank, something like that. And then instead of continuously doing the exact same thing, which you could, maybe pick your head up and look around and be like, okay, what does this look like if I wanted to get to not from 1 million to 2 million, but from 1 million to 10 million, or from 10 million to 100 million? And just be willing to accept that could mean that you're doing a loss in the short term for a gain in the long term. I have a principle in my life that I have like 43 principles I live my life by, and one of them is that most of the time, anything that's good in the short term is bad in the long term, 100%. And anything that's bad in the short term is good in the long term. And obviously, you know that fitness, anything,
fitness is the whole of that,
is
right?
the perfect. Fitness is a perfect example of that. Like, and so that's always what I remind myself. And obviously, there's going to be things that doesn't apply to you, but I'd say 99% of the time that works. So that'd be the first thing. And the second thing was sometimes what happens is, at least for me, it's like, I'm in an industry where it moves very quickly, and we run ads and we get calls. And so in my experience, what I'll do is, like, let's say we do something and it's really working really well, and we're getting a lot of calls, or we start to get a lot of calls or start to get a lot of sales. I could then maybe adjust what we're doing. And I think that it's the adjustment that we did that's helping us scale, but really it was something that we did 60 days ago or 90 days ago. And so it's just misattributing what we're doing that's leading to, and that's happened once or twice. I'm like, oh, we're getting all these sales because of this thing right here. But in reality, we're getting all these sales because of stuff we did 60 days ago. And so I think a lot of people think like, okay, I'm going to do this thing today, and the thing tomorrow is going to end up being the results of what I did today. But almost always the life that we're living today, the experiences we're having today, is from at the minimum 90 days ago decisions that we were making them. And then the life that you're living today could also be from the decisions you made 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. So I have to, the months that we've been down is because I've been like, oh, this is working, we got to go 10x on this. And a great example was like with YouTube, I had stopped doing content for a while because I was thinking that our ads were really like doing really well. And so I was like, oh, let's stop doing content. This is about a year ago. And I was like, let's just pause content. I don't really want to create content anymore. Let's go on ads. And like, it had looked like it was going well, but then within 60 days, I started to see not only our profit dropping, but number of qualified sales calls, number of sales, et cetera, et cetera. And so then I turned back around again, and now I've been doing 3 YouTube videos every single week for the past, I think 4 months now or 5 months now. And now we're starting to see the other end of that again. And I know that if I were to stop filming content right now, we'd go right back down to where we were before.
I think as men in particular, we only learn from mistakes and pain. So it's like I think it's just the way we're ingrained. You mentioned YouTube there. In terms of YouTube as itself as a vehicle to book calls, are you tracking calls booked per video? So you know, like, okay, this video here is crushing it for us in terms of lead gen.
Yeah.
Are you using like Hyros to track that?
Yeah, so we do have every single parameter in the description of YouTube does have a Hyros tracking link. For those of you that don't know what Hyros is, it's an attribution software. So we can see this video is bringing in the call for sure, but you kind of just got to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt because, for example, someone might watch this first video that introduces them to you, then they watch 2 more videos, and then the third video they watch is finally the thing that gets them to book the call. So you're thinking, once again, misattribution. You're thinking, oh, this third video is the reason I need to scale this third video up, when in reality you need to be scaling up the first video so you can get more people inside of your funnel in the first place.
There's a saying I like, and it's slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Yeah.
And it's my natural tendency in business sometimes is to hit everything with a volume hammer, which is like my personality of just do more. But I often think, even in particular with paid ads, it's like gently, because like that type of thing of like, oh, it's working, let's go all in, and then it wasn't actually that thing that was working anyway, and then you've made a big mistake like 4 weeks down the line.
Yep, and you also eat into all your profit on top of that as well. Yeah, it's even right now, we just launched we're calling it the membership method. We're showing people how to like launch their own community online, and we did a webinar the day before I did this mastermind, and it crushed. And we did a 20% sales conversion rate on the webinar itself, and I'm like, this is it. Like, let's go. Let's start scaling this. Let's do this. And the rest of my team's like, let's chill. You know, we got a lot of other stuff going on right now. Let's make sure this is a beta group. And so I had a podcast yesterday with Ravi Abuvala, who was also in the mastermind, and he was saying it's so funny how many entrepreneurs say the exact same thing that you just said, which is just like, all of our solutions is just to do more things and do them faster. You know what I mean? And I was saying yesterday that I think that that's mostly because I won't speak for everybody, but at least for me, I've gotten to where I am right now because imperfect action, immediate action, quickly, hustle, volume, boom, boom, boom. And ironically enough, I had a great YouTube video on this where I talked about the difference between a strategist and a tactician. And so I was like, oh, everything I've done up to this point has rewarded me to get me where I am, but I think that the next level, I need to take a step back a little bit, and I need to be like, okay, let's not do 70 things every single quarter. Let's maybe figure out one thing that we want to do this quarter, and let's do that as good as humanly possible. But I would say that I've never met an entrepreneur who's like excellent at that. Almost every time it's that they struggle with it. I just believe that some entrepreneurs have it better under control than others do.
It's funny you say that because I'm smiling and laughing because I actually spoke about this in one of my YouTube videos on how I first made $100,000 a month in online coaching. And like at the beginning, I remember I first joined a mastermind and they gave me stuff to say on the Tuesday. By Wednesday, I'd done everything. And they were like, what's wrong with this guy? He's like autistic. Because I'd just be like, I just get up at like 3 a.m. and just do it all. But at some point, that then causes problems in your team when you have a business because you're like the one just hammering stuff at people all the time. And it's not getting done properly and it's just causing carnage. So I think you need different skills at different levels as the business grows, which I think is where entrepreneurship is probably the greatest game of self-development.
Yes.
Because the skill set get you from like 0 to 10K a month or 0 to 50K a month is different to go from 50K to 500K. It's a completely different game.
Yeah, I had Dan Martell on my podcast a few weeks ago, and he said something so casually in the podcast, and he probably doesn't even know that it hit me so hard, but he was talking about whatever your greatest strength is right now is likely also your greatest weakness. And so he's like, you're a huge systems guy, and that's also probably your biggest weakness at the same time. And I was like, holy shit, that's totally right. I was even, when I was talking to Ali yesterday, he's like, oh, so why is this mastermind your highest level mastermind? You're inviting these people out here? I was like, no, honestly, I'm just in Paris, and I was like, well, let's just throw this mastermind and let's have fun with it. And it's funny because I was explaining to him how previously it's like, unless this person bought like our main packages and they came into the funnel and they did this thing, it was like we weren't going to work with this person, right? I had to have systems around everything from A to Z. Where this mastermind was pretty ad hoc, to be honest with you. It was just like threw it up my Instagram story, made a sales page, like got the sales that came in. We had 30 people there, and it was a blast, you know. And we were profitable for the mastermind as well. A few people I know are going to work with us further, and it's just so funny because I used to do more of that. I used to do like these ad hoc things where it's almost like that collaboration thing that's like you don't know what's going to come from it. But I stopped because I said at the beginning of this podcast, I was like, okay, if I can systemize it, then I never have to do it again. So it's almost, for a one-off thing, it doesn't really make sense to systemize it, so then it doesn't make sense to even do it in my mind. But I know that there's a lot of things that I'm missing out on because I'm like, oh, well, if it's only one-off, I don't want to do it. Podcasts are a great example, like we were talking about. Like that's why I said no to those podcasts previous, because I was like, oh, I'm not going to systemize it. It's going to be a waste of my time, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, he was like, yeah, systems for you is probably going to be your biggest bottleneck. And I was just like, oh my God, that hit me like a ton of bricks.
But what I thought was interesting, that it flips back about what we're talking about content, is doing the opposite of probably what you normally do.
Yes.
It's like you get stuck in this rut of doing the same thing.
I know.
You have like your own bias that this thing is right because this is what I've done and this is what got me to this point. So then if I stop doing this, I'm going to lose the superpower and everything's going to fall apart. Whereas sometimes I think you need someone from an outside perspective to be like, yeah, you might want to think about that from a different perspective.
It's also funny because like I'm thinking of the people listening to this podcast right now, and we're like, yeah, you got to do this thing here, but then you also got to like just totally change it. You know, it's like you also don't know when to change it, and it's probably kind of confusing. But that's the thing. You had said it really well. I think I heard Ed Milet say it like years ago, but it's like entrepreneurship is the best personal development game you can ever go through. So like with the people that are listening to this or whatever, and they're looking for like, this is the one answer roadmap that you do from A to Z. At every single level, all you have is somebody that's just figuring it out. I was listening to this podcast by on NPR called How I Built This, or How They Built This, and it was about MailChimp, which is like a CRM email software. They're a massive company. And the CEO was saying, like, one of the things that gave him permission to like scale and keep on making mistakes was he went into this other company that was 10 times the size, multi-billion-dollar company, and like they were in the executive board, and he was expecting to go on this executive board and all these people be like, this is how we run the business, this is what we do, like we know all the answers. And he said that everyone in the room was like, yeah, we really don't know what the hell we're doing. We're like figuring it out as we go day by day. And I always actually reference parents as well. It's like when I'm a kid, I thought that my parents had everything figured out in life. I thought that what they said was like God's law. Like I thought that like they were the smartest people in the world. And I'm not discrediting my parents by any means, but then you grow up and you become adult. Like I used to, when I was 12 years old, I used to think 30-year-olds knew everything. They were like had their whole life together. Now that I'm coming up on 30, I'm just like, I don't know anything. You know what I mean? I'm still literally trying to figure out all of this stuff as I go. So anybody that tells you, especially if you're listening to this right now, that's like, oh, this is what you do and this is the right steps and I have it all figured out, I think it's total bullshit. I think the best people are figuring it out day by day as they go.
A framework to think about is that this is everyone's first time doing it.
Yeah, very true. Exactly.
Like I say that to people a lot of like, I've never run a business this big. I'm just like winging it.
Yeah.
Which I am, and it's like educated guess. So it's like you're trying to learn quick from podcasts, listening, masterminds, like getting around the right people. For the audience listening to this, a lot of these listeners are going to be mainly in the fitness industry, growing online fitness businesses. What do you think is maybe the biggest thing people are sleeping on in that niche, maybe from a paid advertising perspective or even from organic social media?
Yeah, so we have quite a bit of clients that are in there, and almost every single one of them, what works incredibly well for us is the combo of Instagram, organic content, consistent posting 1 to 2 reels on a daily basis, and then paid ads to boost those reels, as well as paid ads for Instagram DM ads. So there's a few clients of ours who, I mean, almost 5 to 10x their business within 30 days just because they come to us, they had a decent following on Instagram previously organically, and I'm just like, oh yeah, once we set up ads, this shit's just gonna take off. And most of the time, we'll just be able to 2 or 3 extra business just by doing their followers, just retargeting their followers, not even cold traffic, but it's like, you had said it earlier, you know, organic reach is going down a little bit right now, and it's, for you and I, it's like, and obviously you've worked with thousands of personal trainers, but it's always so funny to me because my gut reaction is like everybody knows ads already. But then it's always so funny how even yesterday at the mastermind, people that were doing really well were like, yeah, we've never run ads before. And I'm just like, what? You're doing this much money a month and you have this huge audience. You've never even tried ads before. And so for everyone listening to this, if you haven't tried ads, I think one of the best things you can ever do is organic content on any platform, but then back that up with both increasing the reach of that organic content and also direct message ads where it's like, someone sees your organic content and the next time they scroll on Instagram, it's an ad from you and it's like, hey, you've probably checked out some of my content before. Did you know that I help people get in shape and do X, Y, Z? Comment fit down below. And then you enter them in a mini chat automation. And it can get a little messy when you start getting thousands of messages inbound a day and appointment setters. At some point, that's why I like to transition to a video sales letter because it's way more scalable and way more leverage. But if you're a personal trainer and you're not doing like 10K a month at least, you should easily, in my opinion, be doing DM ads, Instagram ads, et cetera, et cetera.
For anyone who's listening to that who's a client, I did not pay Ravi to say that. Well, I didn't know what you were going to say. So, because that's the exact thing we teach people. And for my own personal experience, for our own fitness business, that was the easiest way to scale. And that's like what we teach in our 4C method, which everyone wants access to. We've got a free course below the video. One thing that's interesting, though, which we have done recently, we literally launched like 10 days ago, is we have AI chatbots.
Nice.
Now handles the whole conversation flow. And this was a bottleneck before. It can handle 100 conversations per minute.
Wow.
So I can blast ad traffic in. Like, I'll give you an example. We're getting leads from Mexico for like 80 cents a lead. You may think that they're terrible leads, right? But there's a lot of wealthy people in Mexico as well. And the cost per lead is so low. But we can't handle the volume of messages coming in. But now we have this bot that can then filter through the crap people and the good people and like quality control through it. It's like a different game.
I remember when you were working with us as well. I think I remember like you were showing me how many appointment setters you guys had and like all the Google Sheets and all the things that you did. So complex. I remember thinking like, yeah, you need to figure out a better, like at that point, it makes sense to transition to like the video sales letter or something that's a little bit more scalable. But yeah, I mean, I think that if you get an AI chatbot in there, that could extend your runway for how much you're able to do monthly in DM ads considerably, maybe 10x what you're able to do. And the AI works well.
It's insane. We didn't even realize this, but it can do it like any language. So like because the ads were Mexican, right?
Sure.
Someone replied in Spanish and just went off in conversation in Spanish.
Wow.
And that's when you're like, this is nuts.
Is this inside ManyChat?
It's like, no, it's linked through Wow.
Wow.
So it's wild.
That's nuts.
Anyone who wants it, we are selling it now, so we're white labeling it to our clients.
I like it. That's super smart.
Yeah, that's, when you see something and it's like an exciting opportunity.
Yeah.
Actually, interesting, when my business first blew up was just after COVID happened. No one was running ads, and there was ManyChat's crap back then. There was something called Direct Heroes.
Okay. Oh yeah, I know Rohan. Yeah,
it got banned by Instagram.
Yeah.
But like, I was caning it on that because no one's running ads. I was running messenger ads and had this like automated bot going. No one else knew of like VAs and stuff back then, so it was so easy. So.
It's the exact unique mechanism thing. That's literally what it is.
Advantage.
Exactly. Yeah, you literally had done the same thing, but that's. I think that's, and it's so funny because even a few years ago, it used to be so much more complex than it is right now. But I mean, anybody today could literally set up an ad in like maybe 20 minutes. Like all of our clients, we typically, when we onboard them, we're setting up the ad campaign on the onboarding call, which usually blows people's minds. But it's so easy to set up. And then DM ads, I think, are super easy to manage as well. Like you literally just increase the budget a little bit every single day. But the biggest bottleneck is the response back to messages. So if you have an AI bot for that, and then do they send them to a sales call? Or
you send direct to call booking link.
Okay, yeah.
And then they'll follow up with them. Because this is the problem. When you run at mass scale, the inbox is carnage. Like the messages come in so quick people can't reply. Then like they can't follow up. Like Meta Business Suite can't handle the tagging and the following up. So it's mental. I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah,
but like I said earlier, it's like I'm trying not to like volume hammer. Like let's just put like $1,000 a day on these messenger ads and see what happens.
And but the cool thing about I think your business and my business is even what I was saying yesterday at the mastermind. Everyone's like, we're testing the membership site and it's going well, and everyone was worried about it like cannibalizing their high ticket offers and I was saying, well, that's the nice thing about that's why I love my business is that I can take these ideas and I can test them. And then I kind of see it as like, this is me just doing my job as, for our clients in scaling with systems where I can test stuff, put it on the line, and then if it works, I go back to my clients and I say, you should implement this. And if it doesn't work, I learned a lesson, and sure, I spent some money on it and some time, but that's the whole point of it. So it's cool because, yeah, you're trying not to do the volume hammer, which I totally appreciate, but at the same time, you're also kind of validating this for yourself, and then if it works, you're going to go out and show all of your clients as well.
And I think that's the most important thing in the industry that both of you and me are in, is that like you become the highest level of authority by like you're the person who does the thing and then teaches the thing. There's a lot of people who don't do the thing who try and teach the thing.
Yeah. I always tell my clients, like, sometimes I feel like I get to cheat a little bit because it's like everything that I'm testing, I get to justify by saying that we can teach our clients what works and doesn't work. And then I have my clients come in, and then I get to see what's working for them. And I'm like, oh, I've actually never thought of doing that. Yeah, I've never thought of doing that before. Like, maybe we should model after that. I'll take like a screenshot of what our clients has a Slack channel. I'll send it to our marketing director. I'm like, yeah, we should maybe test that out as well. Or like, this is working really well for them. So it's kind of, I love that business, that business model. And that's why I feel like I'll do some version of what I'm doing for the rest of my life for sure.
It's business is a game at that point.
Yeah.
Interesting question for you in terms of, and we touched I think a bit on it yesterday at the mastermind, is how do you focus between acquiring more clients and then client retention in terms of like where do you spread resources and the problems to try and fix? Because I think I see sometimes people are too paranoid about retention. They don't go and move to try and actually focus on acquisition. And then I see other people who have like an awful business model, in my opinion, which is like a churn and burn model. So they just acquire clients and don't give a shit.
Yeah. It's so interesting. So I showed yesterday a little bit of it, but like about almost a year ago exactly, I submitted this document to my leadership team, and it was called Increasing Lifetime Value. And I just analyzed what we've done. So we've done a little over 25 million in scaling with systems the past few years, and I'd analyze in Stripe all the transactions, all the customers, et cetera, et cetera. And so our average ascension rate from like our main product to our backend product was about 30%, everything included inside of there, which isn't terrible. But that means 70% of people are churning, right? Which is not that amazing, right? But it's better than most people, like you said, who was like 99% of people churning, 100% of people churning. But that being said, it's interesting because it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is like you could work 5 times harder than you are right now and acquire more clients, or maybe work 5 times harder for your clients to try to retain them. But if you're not in the right vehicle or the right business model, then it doesn't matter how much more work you do for your clients, they just might not retain. And what I realized was, I mean, I'm not just saying this, but our client success is bar none. In our industry, I think it's the best that there is out there. I mean, it's like every single day. I mean, I invest in an unbelievable amount of money in our client success team, feedback surveys, like every day I get feedback on it. But our ascension and retention is still 30%. And the problem in my eyes is more the actual business model itself. It's like what we're doing for the clients. Like if we help a client really scale, at that point, they're probably going to hire what we're doing for them and take it in-house. They'll build their own team. That would make sense. That's what I would do. You know what I mean? I don't blame my clients for doing it. And so it's like, okay, I could keep on working harder to try to retain clients, or I could maybe adjust the business model a little bit and see how can I, either capture some of the upside, which is one thing we considered doing, which was like starting to charge clients a percentage of how much money we were making them, like 10%, something like that. But that just seemed complex and messy, et cetera, et cetera. Or could I figure out something that was like a little bit more lower barrier to entry, and that could really build some recurring revenue on there, such as the membership site, Scaling School, which is what we ended up launching, and it's done well so far. So the answer to that question is like, I think in the very beginning, you should definitely focus mainly on acquisition. If I'm being honest with you, I didn't really care about retention when I first started. Now, acquisition only works if you're getting results for your clients, but I define retention as like you're creating a back-end offer, some kind of continuity, something like that. And we didn't even launch ours until maybe 2 years in business. We had already done like $6 or $7 million in sales. And so I was very much, I won't say churn and burn because it has a negative context, but it was just like running ads, getting clients, getting them results next. I didn't even think about it. Exactly. I didn't even think that there was like a next step I should take these people through. And then we launched a back-end offer scaling initiative, and that's done very well. And it adds definitely a few 7 figures to the bottom line every single year. But that being said, we focused really hard on Ascension, and I went all in on client success. I invested all this time, energy, money, and effort. But it didn't necessarily equal a 1-to-1 increase in the amount of people that were being retained. And that's when I realized, okay, I should maybe focus a little bit more on the business model itself, the vehicle that we're in, and that might actually lead to more retention, which it's a little early days to be able to say if that's the case or not. But that's a long way of saying that I think definitely acquisition first, then you should be focusing on retention after you've done acquisition down. And then from there, you can maybe take a step back. You probably are making enough money where you have team members managing the company, and you can take a step back and you can say, okay, what does 10x what I'm currently at? What does that look like? Like, does that, at these numbers, at this retention, like at this cost per acquisition, you said at the very beginning, costs for Facebook ads are going up, et cetera, et cetera. What does 10x look like if your goal is to 10x, let's say? And then you can take a step back and think, okay, should I maybe start thinking of adjusting the vehicle a little bit so that I can maybe hit these numbers without having a one-to-one 10 hours of more work equals 10 times more money? What if it was 1 hour more work equals 10 times more money?
Creating leverage.
Yeah, and you're already going to likely have leverage, but Naval Ravikant talks about 4 types of leverage, right? Code, capital, people, and media. And so people are one of the oldest forms of leverage, like Industrial Revolution.
It's the hardest to manage.
And it's the hardest to manage and scale, right? We've had a 50-plus person team. At one point, we had 65 team members, and it's like, I can tell you right now, it's not easy, and it's really a 1-to-1 point of, maybe a 1-to-2 point of leverage. So I'm paying somebody, I'm getting 2 units of energy out, 1 unit of energy in. Capital is another great form of leverage, right? Because that is like you're paying some money maybe to Facebook ads, and you're getting a 300% return on investment, but you need the money to make the money, right? And then the nice thing about code and media is it's what's called permissionless leverage. So you don't need anybody's permission to make this podcast. We don't need anybody's permission to necessarily create the software. And then the software has almost no additional marginal cost of replication. Same thing with media. This one YouTube video we have right here, this could be seen by 10 million people, finger crossed, right? Yeah.
Make sure you like the video.
And it's not going to cost us any more time or any more money, right? But if we took on 10 million more clients, even though that is a form of leverage, it's going to cost us a considerable amount more money. So I think that you should definitely utilize capital and people when you're first starting out. It's a great way to scale a business. But then as you get higher and higher, you just have to ask yourselves, going back to collaboration a little bit, I would be like going on these podcast tours and I'd be talking to these guys and they'd be like, hey, I really want to launch this business. Can I have your help? I'd be like, yeah, give me your number so far. And they'd be like, cool. So I'm just by myself. I have this YouTube channel and I'm doing like 6 million a year, 7 million a year. And I'm like, whoa. You're by yourself with one YouTube channel and you're doing $7 million a year. And that's because they have media. It's like media is a super high form. They have these affiliate deals that come in, sponsorships, all that stuff. And so it's being exposed to that kind of stuff. I think the world's changing a little bit where if you're not ironically leveraging some of those points of leverage like media or code, even what you're saying with the AI things as well, then I think that you could be focusing too obsessed on like, do I need to run more ads? How do I retain clients? And instead being a little bit more obsessed on like the actual business model itself.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting you said the media thing. The first thing that comes to mind, I spent some time with Wes Watson in Miami the other week, and it was like, guy's doing 2.5-3 million a month. He has 0 employees.
Hey, that's what I'm saying. By himself, IGDMs, like it's absolutely, no matter what you think of the guy, that's impressive as hell.
That's wild.
It's literally, all he's doing is Instagram. They're not even running ads, or at least I haven't seen, I funnel hack people all the time. And I was looking at his stuff this morning. I was like, dude, and I think most of what he sells is like a month, or like a $49 a month, and then he sells these one-off packages that's in addition to that. But, and he kind of came out of nowhere there. But yeah, that's a perfect example of, in one person business doing $20+ million. Now I'm sure he has some people help him here or there, but like essentially a one person business doing $20+ million a year.
One thing I think is important for people to take context of something like that and then where's the success is those, I would say that's a unicorn in that respect.
Sure.
And I think what I see is sometimes people are like, he does that, so that's what I must do.
Yeah.
And I think people need to understand context of like, you're not this person, you're not Ravi, you're not Charlie, you're not Wes, you're not whoever. It's like, the way I try and look at making decisions is like, what's the easiest thing I can do that's going to have the biggest ROI? Whereas I see someone's a beginner and then they want to go and run a VSL straight away. It's like, I don't even run VSLs when we have like done nearly 10 million sales.
Sure. I think that what you said is 100% right. I think there is like some order of operations that makes sense, but that doesn't mean that you can't start doing some of the stuff that they're doing today. Like, okay, how is Wes able to do that? It's because he's creating content and posting content 100%. Every single day. You know what I mean? So like some of the stuff that you can take from them, it took me years to really see the value of YouTube videos and how beneficial YouTube videos are. And then even after that, I still stopped posting them for a while. So I really hadn't learned my lesson, to be honest with you. And so I always tell people if I had to start everything over again from the beginning, I probably would have started YouTube videos. So you had said like, hey, what's the easiest thing I do? In our company, we call it the smallest lever strategy. So whenever we get a client, they come on board and they want to get to this next revenue goal, we always look at, okay, there's something called the theory of constraints, right? Which is like find whatever the biggest bottleneck in the business and solve it. And that's essentially what we do for our clients. But then once you identify the biggest bottleneck, let's say it's marketing, then the first question we have ourselves is what is, I call it the smallest lever strategy. What is the smallest thing we can do inside this bigger thing, which is like we need more sales calls in order to get them in order to remove that bottleneck. So yeah, I agree 100%. I think there's steps in order, but I think that you would be remiss kind of talking about everything we've said so far, if you didn't at least learn from, like if you wanted today and you're like, let me start this business and I'm going to do no media, no code, I just want to use people and like scale that way, I think that would be a mistake if you're not learning from these people that are doing 10, 20, $30 million a year with one person and an Instagram account.
Something you said there just reminded me of. I learned something from John DeMartini, which I highly recommend anyone goes and does one of his intensive days. It's like life-changing. And it's called Traits of the Greats. And you literally look at like 7 different areas of your life, like wealth, I don't know, like spirituality, relationships, whatever, health. And you pick like 3 people in each area who's like the person you want to be like, and you study the person. So like, you watch their YouTube videos, you make notes on it. And like, I've done that with a few people, and I found that really useful because you start to pick up common traits. And then traits of the greats is like if you start to take the way these people behave, you then start to get the results they have in some degree, which I think is an interesting concept.
It's funny because I think that's an amazing idea, and I actually also recommend John DeMartini. He's a legend. But the thing that I also kind of took me a while to realize, like, so first of all, there's no rules in any of these games, right? We're making all this stuff up as we go. And one of the things that I've learned is like, I used to think like your mentor was one person and you would like, that's the person that you emulated after. And then what I realized, I won't name names here, but like when I first got involved in this world, I would go to these masterminds and I would love how this person ran their business and how they maybe made things simple and how much money they were making, but like they were fat and out of shape, or they had an atrocious relationship with their significant other. And I used to think like, oh, well, that's how it has to be. If I want to do this thing, then I have to be out of shape and I have to have a better relationship with it. And what I've learned now is exactly what you said a second ago, which is like, okay, cool. You know, you can just pull these traits that you like from this person here. Like, it's like shopping. These traits that you like from this person there, these traits that and, you know, the question you have to ask yourself is like, okay, maybe just to do easy numbers. Okay, this person's doing $100 million a year and they have a terrible relationship with their wife and they're out of shape. Okay, well, this person is making $10 million a year, but they have in shape and they're making an amazing relationship with their wife. So could I make $50 million a year and I'm not saying that these are actual numbers, but I'm just saying that, you know, the 50 to 100 million is probably not going to change my life one iota, but like being out of shape and making $100 million is probably going to be absolutely terrible. I'm going to probably die pretty early. So it's like, I think to say that you're going to replicate or model exactly one-to-one what somebody else has is probably rare, and you probably don't want to do it. Like I always tell, I was having this conversation in a car ride yesterday, but this guy was like, you know, do you ever like compare yourself to other people, et cetera, et cetera? And I was like, dude, all the time. And they say comparison is the thief of joy, 100%. But it's like, it doesn't matter what level you're at. There's always the next person ahead of you that you're always like, I wish I was like that person there. And so what I've done is like a good exercise for me is I've always asked myself like, would I trade everything about my life for everything about their life? Because there's a good chance that how they got to exactly where they are today is the accumulation of everything. You know, if they're fat and out of shape, blah, 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 it's probably accumulation of everything. So if the answer is that I wouldn't trade exactly all of my life for exactly all of their life, which I've never had anybody that so far, then it's like, okay, well then I don't want to be that person, but maybe is there something that they are doing that I can pull and I can take into my own life?
It's interesting. I had a therapist say this to me. It's like basically worked out like the core values of like who you are and what makes you happy. So like some of mine was like I like enjoy competition. I like being healthy, working out, traveling, like wealth generation, freedom, like all that type of stuff. She was like, if I give you $1 billion tomorrow, but you're not allowed to ever go to the gym again, you're not allowed to travel, you're not allowed to do anything competitive and work, would you take it?
Yeah.
I was like, fuck no. So I was like, but that was a really interesting thought process because then you're like, you can have all this money, but you can't actually do the stuff that makes you fulfilled. And then you realize that doing the things to make you fulfilled are actually worth more than the money.
People don't realize, but happiness actually does have a price to it, right? Peace of mind actually does have a price to it. So it's like, what would you be willing to sacrifice for that thing there? One of the best exercises I've ever done is created a life manifesto. So I decided what I want my life to look like 3 years from now. And I actually read it in one of my YouTube videos, but I pretty much said like, this is the car I want to drive, this is the house I want to have, this is the relationship I have, this is the boat I have, this is the plane I own, this is how I spend my days, et cetera, et cetera. And then once I added up all the math, it was like, it was just $80,000 a month is what literally everything I could think of that was the most amazing version of like the life I live. And I already, in all honesty, live a really amazing life as it is right now. But like where it was like, I pulled out all the stops of everything I could have. It was $80,000 a month. And in all honesty, I could do that right now if I really wanted to. And so it was like just so funny to me when I did that math, because most people have never even done that math before. And yet they're sacrificing all of these things today because they want this tomorrow. Most of the time they're sacrificing like a health or a personal relationship or something like that for money that they could have later on. But ironically enough, once you actually do the math, you realize it's way more attainable, way more sooner than you think. And I know that this is going to go over so many people's heads, but it's not that hard to make $100,000 a month. It really, like online, it's really not that difficult to do. So once you figure that that's actually pretty achievable, then you can start focusing on maybe doing some of the other stuff you're putting off right now. And there's another great book I'll recommend to other people called Die with Zero. Have you read that book before?
No.
Okay, so great book. It's a super short read, but it's like, he talks about how over time, at least in the United States, the data shows that people's net worth, it starts obviously at zero, and then over time it's just up and to the right. And at first glance, you think, that's really great. Net worth, by the time you die, you're as rich as you've ever been. But ironically enough, it's like, okay, if you're dying and you can't take anything with you, what it really should look like is a bell curve where you make a lot of money relatively early on, and then you start spending down the money that you've made to really enjoy the life that you've had, so that by the time that you die with zero, the name of the book. And, I'm not saying I advocate for that 100%, but it really changed the way that I thought about money and my relationship with money. And then, the arguments, which he covers all in the book, is like, oh, well, what about taking care of your family members? Well, he always says like, okay, well, why don't you take care of them now? Like, and that's one of the reasons why I started paying for my mom's rent and utilities about a year ago, was because after I read the book, I was planning on leaving behind all this money, but I was like, wait, my mom's going to be dead, before I die. And then same thing with my sister and my brother, and like spending time with them. And then it's like charity. It's like, why not seeing the benefits of your charity, your investments in the charity right now? And so once again, I think a lot of people put off into the future like these decisions because it's scary to think about that you have to make those decisions eventually. And so they just, in the future, once I have enough money, then I'll figure out what I want. But then instead, if you do it right now, in my opinion, it can help you kind of like identify a better life that you want to live sooner.
It makes you more motivated because it pulls you towards your
Exactly.
And I think a framework I think about a lot, and I've definitely been guilty of this in the past, is you think like happiness and success, right? And you think, okay, if I get loads of success, then that'll bring me happiness. But then you sacrifice happiness to get success, which is like a really fucked up thing when you think about it.
It's I think it's the Dalai Lama that's like, man is so I'm paraphrasing. He's like, the man's so messed up because and when they're young, they sacrifice their health for money, and then when they're older, they sacrifice money for health. You know what I mean? So it's like this, this whole conversation I feel like has been so circular, where we've just like said, maybe even confused some people a little bit. But yeah, I'd say my relationship with like money and personal development and like sacrificing stuff for the future, I still work like 12, 14-hour days. Like, so I'm not saying I don't do that, but I am saying that, for example, this trip to Paris right now, I even said to you, like, I could be back at my house working right now, but this is like moments like this, yesterday, relationships like these, like I know personally from looking at my values and what I like, I know that this is exactly what it is right here, like spending time with quality people, learning from them, hanging out with them. And so sure, I could be at my house by myself making a YouTube video, but I know in the long run, I'll enjoy more of these moments, and I will enjoy that.
100%. I think about this a lot. I think about the plane on the way here. It's like, the goal for me was to be able to do what I want, when I want, with who I want, and then like make the world my playground.
Yes.
Like, I want to go from Dubai to Miami to Paris. We can do whatever you want, meet whoever you want, do whatever you want. I think that's on the other side of people actually making a decision and like taking action, and actually going back to what we spoke about, we both did. It's just like ruthlessly implementing and breaking loads of stuff, making a real mess. But like, you fail enough and you fail forwards, you'll get to where you want to be.
Yeah, that you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Agreed.
To wrap things up, Ravi, because I'm respectful of your time, where's the best place for people to find out more about you? You're on YouTube. Yeah,
of course. First of all, thanks for having me on. Awesome. I love this conversation so far. Hopefully people got some value out of it. If you're watching this, you're listening, YouTube and Instagram are my main platforms, at Ravi Abuvala, RaviAbuvala. If you do want to get access to some of our like gated content, some of our paid stuff, we did just launch something called Scaling School, where it's pretty much everything I've learned scaling to $25 million online, and that's scalingschool.com. You can check it out there.
Awesome. Big thank you for that. Everyone who enjoyed the podcast, make sure you smash the like button, subscribe, share, and we'll see you next video very soon. And if you want free access to the 4C course I think I mentioned in the video, you can get that access to that in the link in the description as well. And I'll drop Scaling School in there as well. Think you do.
Boom.
It's good.
Awesome.
26 seconds.